Okay, Anna means to up, and then Tommy means to cut. So human anatomy is a scientific study of the structures of the human body. Okay, now when you are dealing with anatomy as a science, you are looking at the structures of the human body. Where are they located? Which organ is superior to it, or which organ is inferior to it? Now, once we are able to understand this scientific study, then we lay the foundation for the understanding and practice of medicine. Okay, so you can't practice medicine without proper understanding of anatomy and physiology, and of course, pathology. Okay, so this is anatomy. Now, when you are asked anywhere, what is human anatomy? Then you should be able to tell that person that it is the scientific study of the structures of the human body. Simple, 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 simple. Okay, so we are looking at the anatomy aspect. Then shortly we'll look at the physiology too. Now, how did anatomy come to or become anatomy as we know today? So it has gone through an evolutionary processes, not the evolution by Charles Darwin. It has gone through certain narratives, certain trends, certain changes before it came to where it is today. Now, how did it begin? We are saying that anatomy is by far the oldest scientific discipline of medicine. It is the oldest, and it was first documented scientifically through dissections of human body. So when you die, they go and take a knife, they cut. We want to know, inquisitive curiosity, we want to know what is there. You get it? And this is how anatomy began. So we began understanding the human body through dissections, and it began all the way in the 3rd century in a town called Alexandria, if I should say a city. So this time, anatomists were exploring dissections, animals, pigs, monkeys. They were exploring them through dissections just to know what is inside that body. Way back in the 3rd century in Alexandria. Okay. Then we have this man called Claudius Galen. Now, Claudius Galen was known or was one of the most prominent physicians in ancient Greece. Okay, and many of his conclusions was based on animal study. So he takes an animal, dissects it, and then sometimes overgeneralize them to make it look like that is how every creature is. Now, his understanding of human anatomy really brought a lot of clarity in many areas, although many of his theories were disputed, and today we have come to realize that they are not really what they are. But one thing is certain: Claudius Galen really was influential in the development of anatomy as a science way back in the Renaissance time. Okay, so when France was France, and then all of them. I mean, once you study history, once if you mention Renaissance period, you understand. Sorry. Then, after Claudius Galen, we had this man, this painter, or this should I say designer or something? So called Leonardo da Vinci. Okay, Leonardo da Vinci in the 50s. So this man, I mean, he was a crafty man. I mean he was very, very able to, he's able to picture things and then, I mean, print them on walls, on cardboard, on this one. He was very, very good in that. He was an artist. But he wanted to really present a picture, a true picture of how bodies or how the human body is. He was painting the outside. He looks at your face, he will draw. He looks at your body, your shape, and this one, he'll be able to draw. But what is inside? So his curiosity, this man's curiosity, drove him into a certain path. And on that path, he will go to the snake and then get a dead body, send it to him wherever he does his painting, cut, and know what is there. And this was how this man was able to also bring to bear some of the knowledge that we know today. So he did a painting of it. Today, I mean, today the more modern world we live in, artificial intelligence and all that, they can do that, but I thought like that. So this man really brought clarity on a lot of things. Okay, so where the heart is, where the liver is, where the this one is, this man was able to paint for us to be able to understand as it is now. Then we move to the 16th century. Now, this was the man who brought a lot of contribution to anatomy. In fact, he was able to disprove about 200 theories by Claudius that was not actually the true picture of how human beings were. Okay, so Andreas Vesalius was, as his name said, he was versatile, brought a lot of clarity to the field of anatomy, made us understand that many of the things Galen said were actually erroneous. Okay, so yes, he was a professor of medicine then, and then he became a whole authority on its own that we could study. But that's an interesting thing during the 17th century. Now, during the 17th century, they brought to bear what we now know as autopsy. Okay, so they created rooms, they created a lot of this one that people went to see. They put a cadaver on it, and then they begin to cut. Everyone is watching. Let me see what is there. Okay, so you know, as it is depicted here, these are artistic impressions. You see that medical students are here. You see that people who are curious to know what are here. Yeah, and all of that. It is not in my village then. You see a dead body, you have to run away. But today it's different too, you see. So that is how things were those times in the 17th century. In fact, during this time, even women were not allowed to come to practice medicine and all of them. So it began changing during this period. That look, let's throw some of the things we know away and then let's get ourselves going. Okay, so that is how it was in the 17th century and all of that. Then finally, in the 18th century and the 19th century, we saw a lot of advancements. That is when whole body specimens were taking blood, were taking fluid, were taking flames to go and analyze. Okay, to go and analyze. That time, machines were coming. I mean, microscopic. You can get microscopic imaging of a lot of things and all of that. Okay, so that time in the 19th, 20th century, when museums were there, we were doing comparative anatomy. We would take a monkey cat, go and take kangaroo cat, go and take a chicken cat, and so they'll go and do all that comparative anatomy and say that no, where the liver is positioned in human being is different from where the liver is positioned in the monkey, is different from where. So that is how it was in the century. All right. So this is some of the brief history. I don't know if I can go on it, except that there's a question for me. That I'll to jump, go straight. Okay. So now let's look. Yes, yes. If the section can come. All right. So now let's go to um anatomy. I mean, the study of anatomy. We have two broad forms. Okay, you can study anatomy macroscopically, or you can study anatomy microscopically. So we are going to look at the gross or macroscopic anatomy. And what is it? We are saying that it looks primarily into the study of structures of the human body that can be the eye. So when we say describe microscopic anatomy, okay, there you go to the autopsy, I mean, section of the patho department, and then they are cutting you to know, describe that you are doing macroscopic one. Okay, you are doing macroscopic one. So they are large enough to be seen or identified without the aid of magnifying devices. Okay, without the aid of magnifying devices. So it dominated the scene. Macroscopic anatomy dominated the scene until the 17th century, when microscopes were being introduced onto the market. So that is it. So what are some of the principal objective of studying gross anatomy? We are able to discern or understand the size of a structure, the shape, the morphology. Then you have regional position, relationship between the structure. For example, with gross anatomy, you can do muscle, you can do bones, you can do skin, because you can see them without the aid of magnifying glasses. Okay, for example, now look at this. You can see the heart. Once we cut open you right now, your heart, where it is, the veins and the arteries. By the time you are done with anatomy, you should be able to know the human body from where it's going. Okay. Then we move to microscopic anatomy. So as the name suggests, microscopic anatomy. Okay. So we consider magnifying devices to study smaller structures, things that we can't see with our naked eye. Okay. The main objective is to understand body structures at the tissue, cellular, or molecular level. Okay. So you have to the molecular level. And it is these microscopic anatomy that we shall employ a lot of times in our practice when we are studying lab. So when we use magnifying glasses to study tissues of the human body, then obviously you are doing histology. And then when you use it to study the cells, you are doing cytology. So so it reveals the molecular components and organelles within a cell. So it is through the microscope that we even understand the cell, that we are able to go deeper and deeper into a cell, break open the nucleus, and see how the DNA is round up around the histones onto a chromosome. Okay, so that is how microscopic anatomy has really helped us to know. And then now we can even extrapolate the disease that a child may get even in the womb. By taking a sample, they can go and analyze and tell you that this child, if you give birth to that child, the person will get Down syndrome or autism or okay. So that is it. So this, like a cell like this, I mean, we use a microscope to study it. Other than that, the naked eye cannot see all these. Now let's look at divisions of at how the anatomy on the broader scale. So you can study it with the naked eye. On another side, you can study it with magnifying glasses. The next one is the divisions. Anatomy can be subdivided into regional anatomy or systemic anatomy. Okay, so regional anatomy, you are dividing the body into regions to study them. Okay, so you have the chest and all of them, your spine. You have what? The abdominal region. Okay, abdominal region, or usually we add this one, but it's abdominal region where you have structure. You can study a lot of the things in there, your intestine, your this one in there. So we can study the anatomy as regions or in regions. Okay, and we can also study anatomy in systems. So we can take a whole system and then consider the role they play to the overall function of human body. Okay, so you look at regional anatomy or systemic anatomy. So when regional anatomy like this, you are going to, just as I explained, you are going to look at every composition in there. So let me take the head and the neck region. You are going to see that in the head and the neck region, you have bones there, you have muscles there, you have blood vessels there, you have nerves there, you have, so all these things, okay, you study them together as regional anatomy. Okay, as regional anatomy. Okay, and you can also have the systemic anatomy. So yes, so this is regional anatomy of the head and neck, thorax, back, upper limbs, lower limbs, and all that. Then yes, so this is the picture of the regions of the human body. When you are studying it, you will come across so that you may understand in part what is needed from you in the assignment, the IE. Then you go to the systemic anatomy. Okay, systemic anatomy. Now, some cells and tissues have come together, okay, to perform a certain function, a specific function. Okay, so we are going to study all these structures that are coming together to perform that similar function. And that is what we call systemic anatomy. So, for example, you can take the system that is responsible for pumping blood to all parts of the body, and we group all of them together as the cardiovascular system. Okay, as the cardiovascular system. You can look at the system that is responsible for what? The synthesis, okay, of hormones, and how hormones are able to reach their target cells and then turn them on or off. So these are under broadly the endocrine system. So you can study anatomy under systems, or you can study anatomy in genes. Okay, so these are examples of the system. You have the cardiovascular system, respiratory system, urinary system, reproductive system, integumentary system, digestive system, immune system, nervous system, muscular, skeletal, lymphatic, and all of them. They are the system anatomy or systemic anatomy. Okay, depending on how you want to coin or study it, it may be more. For example, some people prefer to dissociate the articular system from the skeletal system. So you have the joint system, articular system. Okay, some even prefer that they look at the formation of blood, okay, how blood is formed in the bones and all that, and then name it the hematopoietic system. Okay, so depending on how you want to study them, then you define the system that you want. So this is an example of systemic anatomy. Okay, so we have the cardiovascular system. Just as I told you, you should be able to understand all this. Then we have the digestive system from the buccal cavity all the way to your anus, and then accessory structures like the liver, gallbladder, and the pancreas. All of them form part of the digestive system. Now, you know that as we advance, we want to study anatomy. Some want to study anatomy in a certain way. So we can also have certain subdivisions in there. For example, we can have something called surface anatomy. With surface anatomy, they are only studying the anatomical, the structure of the body on the surface level. Okay, on the surface level. So it really helps, especially when you want to inject a needle, on the surface level, you should be able to know by pointing to this part of the body. I know that at the back of that, this structure is this. If I go that way, usually these days, parapsychologists or surgeons, they don't really cut like that. They are able to pierce through a needle into it, and then with the help of magnifying machines, they are able to go into the body to take a picture of all that. So they are able to know from here, we shall enter the structure, we shall enter the structure, we shall enter the structure, and there they go. Okay, so comparative anatomy, that one you study living creatures, not only human beings, living creatures like birds, like animals, and all this one, and then you look at you compare them. This is really found in evolutionary biology. Those who did biology may have done biology some way, somehow at the advanced level. When you do evolutionary biology, you are going to come across a lot of this comparative anatomy in there. Then we have living anatomy. People just want to study the human body when they are alive, not when it is dead. When the dead body, no. They want to study the body when the body is alive, because they believe that as soon as you have a dead body, a lot of changes goes on. Then radiological anatomy, people study anatomy through, X-rays. They take X-rays to analyze and all that. Okay, and then embryological anatomy, where they look at how fetus develops in the womb and all that. So these are branches of anatomy. Depending on exactly what you are trying to study, then you know where to go. At this point, any question for me before we go a little into physiology, and then we say goodbye for today?
Hello.
Have I? Yes. Mr. Naughty.
Yes. Let me ask this question because I'm also a good history student.
Mm-hmm.
World War, and we had the German kill a lot of using them as guinea pigs. Can we now also say that they were used as guinea pigs so that they will find out how human anatomy is?
Sometimes we are compelled to teach things that we don't even. History is being said. Nothing is said of Africa, but we know of Ethiopia. We know of. We know of Egypt. We know of. But they are telling us they were not documented. So we go. us to learn. That is all that I can say. Yeah. Thank you. Any more questions for me? A lot has happened, but in a book, them appear there. And this world is moving a certain tangent that if you try to disrupt, you are in trouble. So okay. So now that we are okay, then let me go to the remaining one, physiology, and then we can say goodbye for today. So let's look at physiology. Okay, let's look at. We are saying that just as we have studied for anatomy, we are saying that anatomy considers the structure of the body. So when you take an anatomist and a physiologist, the difference is that, and then you give a human liver or a human heart to both of them. What the anatomist will be looking at is the structure of that particular how that thing is structured. So the anatomist will tell you that, look, this vein or this artery is moving towards this direction. It passes through this. It is anchored on this. It is that and this. Okay, that is the role of the anatomist. He can really tell you exactly how that structure is. The physiologist will be interested more in telling you the function of that. We have maybe the coronary artery here supplying this here. It has this here. It goes here. It is. That's the main difference between anatomy and physiology. That is how come usually they put them together. Okay, so once one part is looking at the structure, another part is okay. So it looks into the internal workings of the body and how it interacts with the external environment. Okay, so physiology, okay, it's emanated from what? Biology. You know, biology is the mother of everything, all the sciences and then all that. Okay, so physiology came from biology and the process of living things. Okay, right from the stage to the molecular of cell activity. It is really looking into it. And today, the technology we have today, we are even able to go deeper into the cell to look at molecular compositions like the under lecture 4. You are really going to understand how these things come up, and it will lay the foundation for the issues regarding DNA, complications with respect to the DNA. Okay, so that is how it is. So physiology is really going to play a role in our studies. Then, so the emphasis, yes, I've talked about the emphasis is on the molecular, cellular system, and whole body function. For the sustenance of in the human body. Okay. Now, there are some prominent figures that you can't really take their names out of physiology. We learn of what? Aristotle. Okay, Aristotle, a way long time ago, who was or is seen as speculating on some of the body functions and all of that. Then Erasistratus came into, in fact, he human function. This is basic, this one. So I don't have time asking history questions in exams, but you have to really understand how this whole thing came about. That we've talked about, I mean, he brought a lot of understanding into how the structure of the body is. William Harvey, how he described how blood is formed in a closed system of vessels that we now know as the blood vessels or the vascular structures. Okay. Then Claude Bernard was the man who talked about the internal environment. In fact, he built he began building on the concept of homeostasis. Okay, that is then canon after the term homeostasis. Okay, homeostasis, how the body keep a constant external environment. When the weather is cold, your body must act. Weather is hot, act. All of these things what we call homeostasis. Okay, we shall study them. So, so evidence of art healing is from China in the around 2000. We'll go deeper into it in traditional Chinese medicine. Ayurveda is Charaka, and then expositions on physiology. Then, well, we take it like that, and I mean, he also came. We know that, and until today, even medical practitioners swear the Hippocratic oaths. They do swear it. Erasmus Stratos is here, father of physiology. He made a lot of observations in the spinal nerves, the GIT, muscular contractions, and a lot of things. Then Jean Ferrat, you will never go and leave the French. So Jean Ferrat was a French lady scientist who derived the physiology from physio, which is physio, and then logia, knowledge. Okay, so Jean Ferrat was instrumental in bringing out the name physiology. So yes, let's move on. So just as I've explained to you, when you are reading the slides, you come across, you understand a lot of things. Okay, so physiology finally was now recognized in the medical curriculum. Okay, and many institutions study physiology as a separate course from anatomy. Okay, all these things, Claude Bernard. Okay, so let's move. So we are saying that knowledge of anatomy will simplify an understanding of physiological processes. So you can't really understand physiology when you don't know anatomy. You can't really understand anatomy when you don't know physiology. So you study the anatomy, you study physiology. Then you can really understand pathology, because pathology deals with abnormalities of structures. Okay, so in contemporary times, human physiology has seen a lot of advancement with the onset of sophisticated machines. Okay, that can look into a wide variety of this. Right? Is this a sophisticated machine that has even made us understand that the heart beats at the second week that the fertilization takes place? I never knew. So they say that the heart starts beating 2 weeks, so 2 weeks when there's fertilization. Okay, so branches of physiology, you can have applied physiology. Okay, so applied physiology, you are studying biological systems and its application. Okay, and then clinical physiology, it is a discipline that takes functional approach to understanding the disease pathogenesis. When it's pathogenesis, how did the disease come about? Okay, how did the disease come about? So you study all this under clinical physiology. Some people consider exercise physiology as well. I mean, it's in other physical activity, how the body is functioning. Okay, how the body is functioning when you are running, when you are jogging, when you are washing your clothes. How is it? These are all exercise physiology. That maybe one day when you complete school, you can take a further studies in. Then we have nutritional physiology or nutrition physiology. Some people go into nutrition. Okay, they want to understand how these nutrients impact the structures of the human body. Okay. And then finally, we can do comparative physiology. How is the cheetah able to run that fast? How is the horse able to run that far? How is human being who has been created in the image of God? They walk from here to here and they are panting. Meanwhile, even animals can walk and run and they don't get tired easily. But human beings here and here, and they want to fall off. May the Lord have mercy on us. Okay, so let's look at some of the relationship between the structure and the function of bodily components. Okay, structure and function. Now we are saying that a group of cells working together, they are called tissues. A group of tissues working together, they are called organs, especially when they are meant to for a specific function. Then when organs come together to function for a or then they are called organ systems. These organ systems eventually come together to make an organism. So yes, so function of organs and bodily system depends on constitution of cells and tissues. Okay, so for example, the ability of systemic circulation to occur uninterrupted depends largely on the constitution of blood vessels. So if your blood vessels plastic, you are good to go. You don't have any blood pressure. But when they've lost their elasticity and then all of that, then you know that to come. Okay, then problem is to come. So yes, so and then articulation, a joint in the body, for them to be able to function properly, you know that you have to get systems in place, your cartilages, especially in synovial joints and all of that. Okay, so finally, what should we do? Techniques for studying anatomy and physiology. The first is to read before you go to class. So what I'm going to share with you, you have to read so that when you come to class, you are going to build upon it. Anatomy and physiology, they are not hard. Pathology, it's not hard. Just that we just don't make time to read them. And one thing I can assure you is that if we don't read, we are only going to graduate. And the higher you go, the tougher it is. So if you don't read one, when one is given to you to be difficult, you are reading. That is how medicine is. And so you see that medical students who have time like that. Okay. And what you are doing medicine. You are doing medicine. Okay, so show up to class and take good notes. I, maybe we are now going to create the bond. Usually my class 3 is 3, and after 3, no one comes in. That is how I am. And students, they love me so much, even though at first they will start disliking me, but along the way they like me so much. 3 is 3. If we say we are close at 6, we close at 6. And when it is time, no extension. Right. So in medicine, right, terms words you are going to hear. Memorize. Sometimes you can use when you are in the room, when you are in bath house, you can speak to yourself, memorize. When you are in the washroom, when you are every part, even when you, the man, women, you are there. Rise. I mean, it will stick better. Yes, Madam Zuzu. Yeah, okay, so I understand you.